Wednesday morning. It's July 8th. This is the Weather Desk, and I'm meteorologist Craig Moeller. Let's talk about what we're going to cover on today's edition of the Weather Desk. A lot going on across the country, more severe weather to talk to you about, and a storm outlook over the coming days. We're also going to talk about Saharan dust, how that dust coming off the coast of Africa blows across the Atlantic tropical basin, that main development region. Eventually, a lot of times it finds its way all the way across the Caribbean or even into the Gulf, and how that can impact the potential development of tropical systems in the basin. So we'll talk about that, and then we're going to look at what's happening in the tropics. Here in the Atlantic, things still looking pretty good for us. There's a couple things we're watching. Back over into the eastern and central Pacific, a couple areas we're also monitoring that are showing some signs of development. And then we've got a big problem for Taiwan and the coast of China eventually. Typhoon Bobby is rolling in their direction. It's certainly a threat to Taiwan and eventually China as well. So we'll have more on that. We're going to bring it back stateside towards the end of the show with a look at the Aspen Acres fire. We've got an update there. A brush fire in California now doing better, but there was a really dangerous situation involving one of the firefighting aircraft and a citizen. We'll talk about that and kind of what was going on there. Weekend outlook for Hampton Roads. We've got some better weather to eventually look forward to. Still, though, some chances for showers and storms. So a lot to break down. We're going to begin with a look at what's gone on nationally. And yesterday, those high temperatures scorching again around Dallas, 100 degrees, 113 in Phoenix. Wow, that's hot. 108 in Vegas, 95 in Salt Lake. Denver, 97 degrees. We had heat in Atlanta, Orlando. Norfolk finally back actually at or a little bit, about a degree below average here. That was nice. Also some cooler weather up around New York City. They got that relief from all the heat they've been sweltering through for the past several days. We're going to take a look at what's going on nationally. You can see this loop from yesterday. Some big storms across the upper Midwest, more unsettled weather. Here and there we had some flooding rain, some heavy rain inland again yesterday afternoon. So a lot going on. We're going to take a look, though, as we begin with parts of the U.S. still cleaning up after getting slammed by strong storms earlier this week. This is a look at some of the damage in Minnesota. The system toppled tree after tree in Detroit Lakes Monday night, and cleanup could stretch on for days. In Connecticut, another storm took out several miles of power lines and utility poles in Harwinton, blocking several roads and trapping people in their homes. Crews with the power company worked around the clock to get the lights back on for customers. And in North Carolina, a storm toppled this tree in Raleigh. Fortunately, no one was hurt there. All right, as we take a look again, you can see some of those areas, Minnesota, back across the Northeast, and then Raleigh getting hit. We'll take a look at kind of what's upcoming right now. Still showers in the upper Midwest. The wet weather we were looking at earlier this morning is pretty much died out. Catching a little break, we could see some additional storms later today. You'll see that with the severe weather outlook. As we look back across parts of the central U.S., really not a lot going on, and the western U.S., pretty quiet. It is going to be hot. That's going to be an issue we'll dive into. But let's take a look at the frontal positions, and you'll notice that there is this frontal boundary off over the north central U.S. from Lake Superior across Minnesota and South Dakota there. We're going to be watching this area in particular because right now there's showers, but there could be some stronger storms, especially a little bit later today. This is the brand new severe storm outlook, and it's actually taken what was a level 2 and increased that to an enhanced threat for the southwest part of Nebraska, eastern Colorado, and western Kansas. So this area here under the greatest likelihood for numerous severe storms. You can see that slight risk extends up through Omaha, Waterloo, Iowa, and eventually up towards Green Bay. So a good chunk of Wisconsin also under that level 2 or slight risk. For western Nebraska, it's a slight risk all the way up towards Rapid City. You get up into the Dakotas, you still find the risk for some stronger storms. Now, wind is going to be the primary concern. You can see that level 3 elevated tier, a 30% chance for damaging winds powerful wind gusts within 25 miles of any given point in this dark blue area. So that is a concern for our area. Just a marginal risk here in Hampton Roads over the western parts of the area. It does include Chesapeake and Portsmouth, basically Newport News, parts of Hampton, and then areas out to the west, Suffolk, Isle of Wight, Surrey, Southampton, all of northeast North Carolina once you get west of Currituck. So a lot of potential out to the west, not as much at the coast here, and I'll talk more about Virginia Beach coming up. Hail threat is greatest across the north central U.S. and back towards Montana, and here's where we have that tornadic threat. Again, Green Bay down through Sheboygan, from Madison on northward, La Crosse, Rochester, once you get into Waterloo and Mason City, Iowa, back towards Fort Dodge and Des Moines, there you have just that first kind of elevated level of tornadic threat, but they need to watch. You need to pay close attention. And I'm sure meteorologists in that part of the country will work hard to keep everybody updated. All right, that's the potential for today. For tomorrow, severe weather, slight risk shifts a little farther to the south, southern Indiana, Illinois, and Missouri, back across Kansas, eastern Colorado, and western parts of Nebraska and South Dakota once again under the gun. We also have a marginal risk later tomorrow afternoon. I actually expect more thunderstorms tomorrow afternoon over parts of Hampton Roads. Winds will be the primary threat for us, and again, you see that elevated risk around St. Louis and Denver. Back towards Colorado, here you have the greater threat for hail, so we'll watch for that. And then a quick look ahead to Friday, you'll notice that marginal risk down south of where it was, basically stretching from Kentucky and Tennessee across Missouri, back through Kansas, and just out to the west. All right, couple areas with heat concerns, heat warnings, and an extreme heat warning there in the southwest and along the southeast coast from Wilmington on southward, heat advisories down through Florida. All right, so this is what's going on today with the severe weather outlook. We're going to take a quick break. Coming up next, we're going to check on the tropics, plus how dust from the Sahara in Africa could be the key to calmer hurricane season here in the Atlantic. We'll talk about it. And Virginia Task Force 1 is back home after spending more than a week on the ground in Venezuela. Welcome back to the Weather Desk. We are a month into hurricane season, and when talking about the tropics, you may have been hearing a lot about Saharan dust. We have been talking about it. The weather phenomena is originating in Africa. This dust kicks up, and it carries westward across the Atlantic, playing a part in the storms or the lack of storms we get each hurricane season. Chief Meteorologist Tim Pandages explains why it could be the key to calmer storms.
year, as the Atlantic hurricane season begins, a powerful atmospheric feature makes its presence known: dust. Not just any dust, but a vast plume from the Sahara Desert, traveling thousands of miles across the Atlantic. This is the Saharan air layer, and it plays a surprising role in shaping weather and supporting ecosystems. Now, NOAA defines SAL, or Saharan air layer, as a hot, dry, dusty air mass that forms over the Sahara from late spring to early fall. Now, like clockwork, monsoonal storms over Africa's Sahel region lifts huge amounts of dust in the atmosphere. Strong upper-level winds then carry the dust westward across the Atlantic, forming a distinct layer. This dry air suppresses hurricane development by starving storms of moisture and tearing apart developing systems, often keeping the tropics quiet early in the season. Now, eventually, the dust transport fades or shifts, allowing storms to form more freely. But the SAL isn't just about storms. The dust is actually rich in iron and nutrients, fertilizing the Atlantic and fueling phytoplankton blooms, the base of the marine food chain. Some of it even reaches the Amazon, replenishing rainforest soil. It also contributes to stunning sunrises and sunsets. However, dense dust plumes can lower air quality across the Caribbean and southern U.S., and this tends to aggravate respiratory problems for those sensitive individuals and sensitive groups. Now, as we track the tropics this season, keep an ear out for Saharan dust. For 13 News Now, I'm Chief Meteorologist Tim Pandages.
All right, Tim, so we're going to take a look at what the models think is going to happen with Saharan dust. And you can see as we look ahead, today is the 8th. We've got some moderate amounts of dust kind of kicking up back across portions of the Bahamas, back across Cuba and into the Gulf. Again, there's more intense concentrations of it back coming off the coast of Africa. And as we take you forward in time, you're going to see that plume continues to feed across some more concentrated amounts back into the Gulf and back across the Caribbean. A little bit of a break come, say, the 16th or 17th, but then additional amounts coming off. So right now, there's a very healthy amount of Saharan dust that's been helping suppress some of the activity. And as we look ahead, honestly, right now, you don't see anything off the southeast coast. We do have a cluster of storms here. This is not tropical, but related to a frontal boundary that is through the area, and that has cooled us down a little bit for today. There is a little bit of convection in the Bay of Campeche and the southwest corner of the Gulf. The Caribbean's largely quiet right now, save for a little thunderstorm there just off the Central American coast, and the rest of the main development region is quiet as well. No tropical activity expected over the next 7 days. As we turn our attention from the Atlantic back across the eastern Pacific, we're going to be watching this area here. There's a little chance we could see something kind of trying to develop here over the next, say, 2 to 7 days or so. As we take a look at the outlook, again, what we're going to find across these regions south of Hawaii, another area that we definitely want to keep an eye to this, is there's a better chance for development. But it looks like that's stuff will stay down to the south. Moderate chances, again, that one area staying south of Hawaii and the other one with about a 40 to 50% chance of developing a little closer to Mexico, but still offshore. Now, over in the western Pacific, a different story. Again, here's Taiwan, and this is Bavi, and this system is a monster. It was a super typhoon. It's now a super typhoon. Forecast to weaken a little bit, but you can see the northern tip of Taiwan there as it moves along. The European model brings it very close to the tip there of Taiwan and then brings it into China. Heavy rainmaker. Again, this has been an area that's already been hit with some heavy rains recently, so they're not really wanting another one, and it looks like they're going to have to deal with this. Does look like it's going to weaken somewhat before making the landfall. Right now, Category 5 with winds of 155 miles per hour, gusting up to 190. Super typhoon. It is forecast to weaken a little bit, passing Taiwan Saturday morning at 120 miles per hour. The center of this thing may be just off to the northeast of Taiwan. The worst of this storm probably a little farther off, but enough to bring a lot of rain and some strong winds, and then again slamming the coast of China. We'll be watching all of that and keeping a close look at it. For an even more in-depth look at what's happening in the tropics, make sure to watch Hurricane Hub Live with Chief Meteorologist Tim Pandages. It airs every weeknight right here at 8 p.m. on the 13 News Now app. If you're watching us on YouTube, you can download the app by scanning the QR code on your screen. All right, we're going to turn our attention back to the area that was hit so hard, Venezuela, and Virginia Task Force 1 spent time in Caracas and helping with rescue and recovery of victims from that terrible twin earthquakes, the two that occurred within about a minute or so. Well, Virginia Task Force 1 is back home after spending 10 days on the ground in Venezuela. 79 members of the urban search and rescue team returned to Fairfax County Monday night. They'd been helping search for survivors after Venezuela got hit with those back-to-back earthquakes. More than 3,500 people are confirmed dead, but thousands more are still missing. Among those waiting to welcome the task force home, members of Northern Virginia's Venezuelan community.
It's my home country, and we have gotten hit and hit and hit for so many years. And this earthquake, it's just another catastrophe that once again our government is not reacting, and it's emotional. I think every Venezuelan inside and outside of Venezuela feel a hole in their heart.
Task force members say this deployment was more complex than past assignments. Now that they are home, they plan to regroup, recover, and get ready to answer the next call for help. Operation Blessing, based out of Virginia Beach, also sent a team to Venezuela. Volunteers have been helping feed first responders and survivors as they dig through debris. They are also helping provide clean water. The organization expects to be on the ground there for several months. Coming up next, crews are making progress putting out the Aspen Acres wildfire in Colorado. We'll hear from evacuees who are still waiting to return home. Drought continues to be an issue across parts of Colorado, New Mexico, and Utah. I want to talk to you about those crews out in Colorado still working to contain the Aspen Acres wildfire. It's been burning in Pueblo, just south of Colorado Springs, for more than a week now. Now the flames have scorched 94,000 acres, and it's just 16% contained. At least 250 homes have also been destroyed. Jasmine Arenas spoke to evacuees who are still waiting to return home.
More than 1,500 personnel continue battling the Aspen Acres fire, strengthening containment lines around the threatened communities. For many evacuees, the hardest part is waiting.
Some people got to got to go back home today, but that was Colorado City. And
Thompson went to check on his home. He was told he couldn't stay.
Only been there like 5 minutes, but I could see it erupting again over the hill right behind where my house is at. And as long as the wind keeps blowing the other way, I suppose. And, I don't know. It's definitely been a rough day.
He spent the last 6 days at an American Red Cross shelter in Pueblo, unable to officially return to the 40-acre property he shares with his mother and uncle.
I already lost one property up there, and I guess I am worried about losing my house too. And I don't know, I just really want to go home, I suppose.
This piece of land is everything to him. He's holding on to hope.
It was the first house I was ever able to buy, and I've been paying on it for 20 years, and it's meant a lot for us. I mean, there's a time that we just didn't have a home, and we're able to buy that place. I'm sorry.
Meanwhile, a line formed at this checkpoint in Colorado City as people anxiously waited to check on their homes.
First time back, nervous, just come to check. A lot more fortunate than a lot of other people up here. So just praying for everybody else. And
I'm grateful to be able to get back into town, but feeling also a little bit guilty because I know a lot of friends and family who don't get to go home.
Firefighters in Southern California spent hours working to contain a small brush fire. It sparked near the Encino Reservoir on Tuesday and burned several acres of land. The LAPD used water drops to stop the flames from spreading, and they say a drone hit one of their police helicopters. LA Mayor Karen Bass said it's completely unacceptable and illegal to fly a drone for a look at a brush fire. So frustrating for those. All right, coming up, it's been soggy, as we got the day started. Some rain. How long the wet weather is going to stick around coming up in just a couple minutes. Welcome back. All right, we've got some raindrops showing up on the camera here. This is up in Hampton, our Thompson Creek Window Company sky view. We're going to deal with the chances for showers here through the mid-morning and maybe even early afternoon farther to the west. 77 at the airport right now. Dew points at 73. Temperatures this afternoon in the lower to mid-80s. Should be a little drier later today. Right now, we still have some showers out there. Light activity, southern tip of the eastern shore. And then we've got this little area kind of drifting through right now over northern Suffolk, pushing into Portsmouth and northern Chesapeake. A little bit of wet weather coming down the peninsula, and again, a few sprinkles around Hampton. This activity much lighter than what we saw before, but there's still some moderate little pockets kind of working south. So keep the umbrellas handy for a little bit. As we get into the afternoon, we're going to be looking for better chances for a few stronger storms farther inland. You'll notice things pretty quiet at the beach. I think it's going to be a great afternoon if you're right along the coast. Inland areas will need to watch for that stray storm or two, which might become a little bit stronger. Overnight tonight, things settle down. Tomorrow afternoon, remember, we've got that marginal risk again over parts of the area. Could see a couple of stronger storms popping up here and there tomorrow with some locally heavy rain, gusty winds. That'll be the primary threat. As we take a look at the beach forecast, we've been dealing with the showers kind of hit and miss this morning. The afternoon looking good, upper 70s to low 80s, and the UV index, it's high. Rip current threat is moderate, the wave height about 3 feet or so in the surf zone. Out on the water, things also looking good with the exception of those areas right around storms that could still pop up. We're not really looking at much storminess right now, but it could be a bit breezier if you do get a storm or two popping later this afternoon. Again, the better chances for storms later today will be farther inland, but still check before heading out. All right, today's forecast right around 85 for a high, mild and muggy. We've got some unsettled weather still and chances this afternoon inland. 75 the low tonight, and then tomorrow up to 94. The heat returns, so do the chances for afternoon storms. Beyond that, looking ahead to the weekend, we've got a beautiful Friday, but it's going to be hot. Saturday, a chance for afternoon storms. Sunday should be drier and less humid into next week with more sunshine. Cannot wait for that. Want to remind you, you can always get the latest news, traffic, and weather on the go with the 13 News Now mobile app. Scan that QR code, and you can have all of this information available right at your fingertips. Thanks so much for joining us from the Weather Desk. We'll see you next time.